Welcome to today's episode of NFL Week 2 Best Bets. If you were with us on Week 1, we simply smashed. However, Week 2 Thursday Night Football kind of stunk, but that's the game, the ups and downs, the highs and lows of sports betting. It happens. If you guys can't handle a losing night every once in a while, this ain't for you, because there are going to be some nights where no matter what you do, no matter how good the play was, it still won't cash. And that is the game we play. But I am here to bring you Week 2 plays that are going to smash and line your pockets. Let's get into the first one. The first game I'm looking at is the Dallas Cowboys 6.5-point home favorites against the New Orleans Saints with a 46.5 total over under. In Week 1, Zeke looked, dare I say, decent. He looked decent. He hit the hole well. He made a couple of people miss in space. Zeke didn't look too bad. Ended the game with 40 rushing yards in a game that was a complete blowout. His line this week is set at 42.5. If you want to play his over, the best line you're going to get is a 40.5 on FanDuel, with it all the way up to a 45.5 on Fanatics. This is a game I expect Dallas to win, although I do think it could be close. One interesting angle here is Marshawn Lattimore was banged up, and I'm not sure if he's playing. I'm thinking he's going to be questionable. If he is out, and maybe even if he's not out, I think you could convince me of a CeeDee Lamb anytime touchdown, a -130 right now on FanDuel. I also might have a little bit of interest in Ezekiel Elliott's anytime touchdown as well. On the other side of the ball, Taysom Hill could score. +210 is decent odds for him to do so, but really the only guy I think that's worth looking at a touchdown for in this game is Alvin Kamara. I personally am not sure if I'm going to play him or not, but it's an interesting angle, and I may eventually go there if I build out an SGP for this game. If you decide you want to go that route, play the CeeDee Lamb anytime touchdown, parlay that with Alvin Kamara to score a touchdown. You've got a nice little +283 for this game. The next game on the slate is the Tampa Bay Buccaneers traveling to Detroit to face the Detroit Lions. Detroit Lions have the highest implied total on the slate this week. There are so many touchdown options in this game to like. I've got to be honest, I'm having a hard time narrowing it down. I totally can see Jahmyr Gibbs scoring a touchdown. He's probably my favorite play. However, not at that -170 odds. So that moves me down the list, maybe to David Montgomery. However, I think an interesting angle at a +100, and maybe you can find better odds on a different book, is Amon-Ra St. Brown to score a touchdown. He was essentially skunked in Week 1, had a terrible week. They didn't look at him. He barely had any targets, barely had any completions. I expect a guy like him to bounce back in a big way. And if you're going to look for another good plus odds touchdown, that would be the guy to play there. However, if you want to play it safe, roll out one of these guys and maybe like a Mike Evans to score a touchdown on the other side. That's a +262. And if you're a little more risk adverse and you want to play something a little bit riskier, I would say that I have no problem going Amon-Ra St. Brown and Chris Godwin at a +386 on this slate. This is an interesting play and really good odds for two guys coming off of weeks where one of the guys is totally due and he's a certified stud in Amon-Ra, and Chris Godwin scored last week. Slot Godwin is absolutely a thing, and I think he's going to continue to have a big season this year. That's why I was all over him in the offseason, all over him in best ball, all over him in fantasy. And couple that with the fact that Baker Mayfield just looked fantastic in Week 1, throwing 4 touchdown passes. So I think it's totally within the realm of possibility and even makes a lot of sense. Something like this: David Montgomery, Mike Evans, +262, Jahmyr Gibbs and Mike Evans, +241. All of these are interesting options. Take your stand, plant your flag, pick which one you like best, play one or two from this game, and then move on. Now, I know, I'm kind of the touchdown king around here. That's kind of a friendly thing that people say to me. I'm walking down the street, I'm in the grocery store picking out my groceries. I'm finding a nice, delicious Fuji apple, and somebody yells out, "Hey, touchdown king." And I'm like, "How you doing, buddy?" So, I know that is my thing kind of. However, if I may, if it's okay with you guys, and I probably should have really shown you my face when I was telling you those great stories of what I get when I'm in the grocery store. searching for my produce. But one of the interesting things you can do with this game, because it has the potential to be such a high scoring shootout for both sides here, and both defenses kind of looked like sieves to the passing game last week. The Detroit Lions gave up 247 passing yards, 34.59 passing attempts, and almost 2 passing touchdowns. So neither defense looked really good against the pass last week. What you can do is pair together Amon-Ra St. Brown, 6+ receptions, and Chris Godwin, 4+ receptions. By the way, which Chris Godwin has 4+ receptions in 71% of his last 20 games here. And you get a nice little -133 there. And if you really want to, and you think one of them scores a touchdown, then you throw one of them in for a touchdown, add it in there, and it gets nice and sweet, a +207. So that's an interesting angle, I think, because like I said, there's so many different places you could go with this game. You could throw Jahmyr Gibbs in there for a touchdown. That's a solid little +438. That really is only like 3 outcomes. It's 2 things for Amon St. Brown from Amon-Ra. It's 1 thing for Chris Godwin, and then it's a Jahmyr Gibbs touchdown. So maybe one of the drives, Amon-Ra gets him down there, Jahmyr Gibbs punches it in, and then another time Amon-Ra gets a 27-yard touchdown. Stuff like that in this game. I think this is an interesting game to attack in multiple different ways, and there's not really a right or wrong answer until the game's over. So get creative, guys. You don't have to play all these things. Use these as parlay pieces when you're building out things this weekend, but these are some interesting angles in this game, and these are one of the kind of games that I like to target. The next game we've got on the slate is the Cleveland Browns traveling to beautiful Jacksonville, Florida to play against the Jaguars. Jaguars are 3-point favorites. However, the home team usually gets 3 points here in these games. So you could really say that this game is a pick'em, and I understand why. Jacksonville blew the big lead last week, and the Cleveland Browns got absolutely dismantled by the Cowboys. Deshaun Watson truly might be cooked. There's not a lot of areas I want to attack in this game. Travis Etienne fumbled at the goal line, literally at like the 1 or 2 yard line, and it was punched out into the end zone. You could go Amari Cooper for a touchdown. That's a fine option. Brian Thomas Jr. scored a touchdown in week 1. I think that's interesting at a +240. I really do also like Jerome Ford. Probably my favorite touchdown play from this game. Evan Ingram hopefully sees some regression, but really one of the places I would go, or one of the 2 places I would go, are right here. Jerome Ford, Brian Thomas doesn't necessarily have to be together, but if you do want to parlay them together, that gets you a nice +610. That's not bad for just 2 guys that are both coming off touchdowns in week 1. I think that's an interesting play for a little sprinkle. A little taste, a little dabble, maybe a 1/10 of a unit or something, or play something to win a full unit, something along those lines. The next game on the slate is the 49ers traveling to Minnesota to play the Vikings. Minnesota 5.5-point dogs in this game. If you want San Francisco money line, it is a -225 with a 46.5-point total in this game. Touchdown scores. Jordan Mason is pretty juicy. However, I do believe that the 49ers should win this game. So I think that that's an interesting little pairing right there. Jordan Mason, San Francisco money line there. I think that's fine. There's nothing wrong with that. I think you could also potentially talk me into a Deebo Samuel touchdown. But I think my favorite play, just really because of the odds we're getting this week, is Brandon Ayuk to rebound from his less than stellar performance last week. If you guys have been paying attention, you got this massive contract, lays out for a touchdown pass in the end zone that we, the community, the fam, desperately needed because we had placed some money on him, and he drops it. I expect him to rebound. I think the safest play is Jordan Mason, with the second safest play being Deebo, but I like Brandon Ayuk here, and I think that it'd be interesting to parlay him with Justin Jefferson touchdown. My only concern is, does Sam Darnold hold up to the pressure? He looked darn good in week 1, I'll say that, but I think this is an interesting little parlay, or both of these people can be played as straights this week. Guys, do me a favor. If you've enjoyed this content, if you've enjoyed this video, if you like my other videos, please drop me a comment. It helps boost that algorithm. You don't even have to say anything super meaningful, or you could say something very meaningful and deep and sincere, and I would appreciate that too. And follow me on YouTube. That helps me grow. I appreciate you guys. Hopefully you find value in these videos. Just wanted to let you guys know that I did try to look at some other lines, specifically San Francisco lines. However, they're scrubbed. Most of the lines are scrubbed from the books right now as the books try to figure out what to do with the latest news that CMC, as I predicted, if you guys follow me on Twitter at TheHulkBets, is not going to play. CMC is out confirmed for week 2, and they're contemplating putting him on IR. I would not be surprised if by the time you guys are watching this video, if it is Saturday, the 14th of September, We have already gotten news that CMC is going on IR at least for 4 weeks. They are not going to mess around with this Achilles. He's got a lot of miles on that body and those legs of his. I think that they play it safe with him and he goes on IR and he's out for at least 4 weeks. Next, we have the Los Angeles Chargers facing off against the Carolina Panthers, who looked terrible in week 1. Carolina is the home team. As you know from watching my video earlier, about 10 minutes ago, I mentioned that the Carolina Panthers, being the home team, usually get 3 points. So really, you could say that this line is a 7.5 point spread here, because I do think that the Chargers should trounce the Panthers. Now, the only reason I think it even maintains relative closeness in this game is just because of the way the Chargers run their offense. However, this leads me to a play I really like. I think the Chargers at money line is totally fine. This is my favorite play, one of my favorite plays of the weekend, and one of my definitely my favorite play for this game. J.K. Dobbins, anytime touchdown at a plus 150. I think I alerted it in the VIP link below at a plus 170 the other day. This was my favorite play as soon as I saw it was available. I think Gus Edwards is interesting, and I know they might use him around the goal line, so that is definitely a cause for concern, potentially. But in my opinion, J.K. Dobbins is the best back in this backfield. He showed that last week, and I think that Harbaugh saw that, and everybody else saw that, and they're going to adjust their touches accordingly to show and to prove and to thank J.K. for being the best running back in this league. I'm sorry, not in this league. They are going to feed him because he is the best back in this backfield. Last week, Gus Edwards got 11 rushing attempts, while Dobbins only had 10. I expect that to shift. And I would say I would estimate something along the lines of 14 to 15 carries for J.K. Dobbins and probably 8 to 10 for Gus Edwards. And I just think there's more carries to go around this week because they should be ahead, should be playing with the lead. And that's also why I have another play that is a VIP only play, but it is a Justin Herbert play. So if any of you VIP members are in here, you guys already got it. You know the play. It's already moved since I alerted it by at least, I think, 15 to 16 points. And I think we got tremendous and phenomenal value on that line. If you guys are in VIP, click the link below if you want to know what the VIP members already know. It's definitely worth it. The next game is the Raiders and the Baltimore Ravens. If you guys have been following me on social media, you've probably noticed a trend, and that is me smashing the Ravens money line this week. The Ravens are at home coming off a disappointing week 1 game against the world champs. There it is. That's all you need out of this game. Set this line and move about your day and take the win, because I think this is a almost near lock. Nothing's a lock in sports gambling. If anybody's sitting out here and telling you it's a lock, they're just showboating. That's just showmanship. But this is about as close as we're going to get, in my opinion. And if this loses, just a bad read. Call it what it is. It's a bad read on my part, but I don't see that happening. I think the Ravens get ahead. I think they win this game handily. I think they pound Derrick Henry. I think, one more thing about I think that there's also a reason to take a look at Derrick Henry's 2+ touchdowns this week, parlayed with the money line for the Ravens at a plus 302. Derrick Henry only got 13 carries in his week 1 game against the Chiefs. However, that game script, the pace of the game, the fact that the Chiefs were pretty much scoring at will, dictated that he was coming off the field more and Justice Hill was in more. I think this game script flips entirely, and it speaks to and it favors Derrick Henry's game to where he gets more touches. I don't know how I feel about the 17.5 line specifically, but I could absolutely see him getting 16 to 19 touches in this game, maybe cross over the 20+ mark if they really get ahead and keep the lead. The next game on the slate is the Seattle Seahawks going into New England to face the Patriots. The Patriots are 3.5 point dogs. I think Seattle wins this game, but their offensive line looked so bad last week that I do have a little bit cause for concern. I don't know if I'm going to be putting any money on Seattle this week. Personally, just my opinion is that they win. I do think an interesting angle is that Kenneth Walker is going to be out this game. So Zach Charbonnet's line to score a touchdown plus 120. I like playing that for about a half unit, probably at least this week, maybe up to a unit. Depending on what I do, I will be alerting the VIP channels, of course. But I also think that you could look at DK Metcalf to score a touchdown. The two of these guys together, and if you want to just put it with Ramaje, who looked really good in week 1, that's a 13.98. Now, this line is only set at 38.5. So they're anticipating probably a lot of field goals, maybe not a lot of touchdowns in this game. So tread cautiously with that. Maybe the safer play is just to roll out both of these running backs at a plus 357. However, as you can see, the odds are not nearly as juicy as they were with DK in the mix. So maybe roll something out like this. You get a 517. I think my favorite play from this game, though, is Ramadre touchdown, then Charbonnet, then DK Metcalf. But everybody has their own tolerance for risk. If you want to sweat out a plus 1,300, that is only 3 outcomes. There's the one I would play, though, with the 3 of them. The next game features the best team in the NFL, the Indianapolis Colts. That's right. A little bit of bias there. I admit it, but sue me because I'm going to continue to say it. Indianapolis Colts, who just lost to the Houston Texans by a hair in week 1, face off against the Green Bay Packers. I saw something crazy. I saw that Jordan Love is questionable for this game. Personally, guys, I think that there's no shot he plays. Like, I really don't see him playing. Why would you risk the franchise of a guy who just signed a multi-million dollar contract for a week 2 game? I don't think they do it personally, but I'm also not a doctor or a decision maker with the Green Bay Packers. So take that with a grain of salt. However, I do think the Colts win this game. And if you've watched my streams, you know I love Anthony Richardson, and I love an Anthony Richardson touchdown. However, my favorite touchdown from this game is right here, baby. Jonathan Taylor to score a touchdown. He scored one in week 1. Anthony Richardson pulled that sucker back on an RPO play and pile drivered his way into the end zone last week to get the Colts close late in that game. However, I do think that he's going to be handing those balls off more often because he doesn't need to take those hits around the goal line. And personally, in this game, I don't think he'll feel the need to do that. I think JT can get this nice and early. I bet you he cashes this out in the first half, and then all we're waiting on is the Colts money line. But even at a plus 110, you don't have to parlay it. A plus 110 doesn't have to be parlayed, guys. You can roll this out with confidence straight up at a 1-unit play for plus 110. I like JT. Think it's interesting to throw Anthony Richardson in the mix, and Josh Jacobs is a guy I'm interested in too because the Colts defense looked like a leaky faucet last week. It was just getting pummeled. It was like a fence, just lanes everywhere that Joe Mixon was running through last week. It was abysmal. I do think they put a greater emphasis on this week, but DeForest Buckner also questionable with a back injury. So there's just a lot going on here. A lot of angles I think you could take, but my favorite single play right here, Jonathan Taylor, plus 110 to score a touchdown. The next game we have is the New York Jets coming off a disappointing home opener against the Tennessee Titans, who also had a disappointing home opener, but for another reason. Will Levis, laying in the dirt, throwing picks, did not look good last week, did not really look good at all. And this is kind of a surprisingly tricky game to pick. However, I am picking the Jets I'm picking them pretty confidently. The thing that's giving me hesitation really is what Vegas is doing with this line here. So it is currently right now set at 3.5. And that's important, guys, to note, because the 3.5 means if you take them, the Jets can't win by a field goal. Because if they win by a field goal, the Titans cover. So you need them to win by 4 points, essentially like a touchdown here. So that's interesting. So I think what you could do is either take the Jets money line, or if you're going to do this, alt spread it and do the Jets minus 2.5, and then parlay that with something else. That way, if they win by a field goal, you still cover in this game. But put all that aside, because my favorite play in this game is the Breece Hall anytime touchdown. I do think it's fine to parlay it with the Jets money line. I don't think you need the points there. I don't think you need to be giving up any points. Just take the money line. It gets it at a nice minus 101. You might be able to find better odds on that line on a different book. And I kind of want to sprinkle the Garrett Wilson touchdown as well at a plus 406. So take a look. I'm going to be looking at this a little bit more, and I will be alerting the VIP to whether or not I throw Garrett Wilson in the mix. But I think this is a fine option, and I'll do you one better. You guys saw me talk about Derrick Henry and his 2+. I think it's a real possibility this week, and the books know it too at a plus 290. But something like that at a plus 313 is very interesting to me in this game. The next game to take a look at is kind of an ugly one. NFC division rivalry, New York Giants against the Washington Commanders, traveling to Washington. It is a minus 1.5 point spread in favor of the Commanders. However, as I said earlier, they're at home. So this game's kind of a toss-up, maybe even a slight lean to the Giants. This is pretty ugly. I'm not really sure there's much interesting things for me in here, except for I have a touchdown play I'm interested in. Brian Robinson Jr. to score a touchdown at a plus 135. BRJ looked great in week 1. He was catching passes out of the backfield. He looked quick. He looked nimble. He looked decisive. I like Brian Robinson Jr. this week, especially his touchdown prop. And another play I'm looking at is Jaden Daniels rushing attempts over 10.5 at a plus 108. Jaden Daniels took off 16 times in week one. And while I don't think that is a recipe for long-term success, I do think it is who he is right now in week two of the NFL as a rookie. If he gets into any kind of trouble, he's not even looking at his second read. He is taking off running, and we're getting this at plus odds. So I think that this is an interesting play and an interesting angle for this week. The next game on the slate is the Rams and Cardinals that actually has some potential for some scoring and some points, with the Rams coming off a week one loss and the Cardinals coming off a week one where they let the Bills come back and beat them. Personally, even without Puka Nacua, who is going to be out for this game with a bursa sack injury, I kind of lean to the Rams in this one on the road. I do think it's going to be a close game. Lots of touchdown options. I like Kyren Williams. Probably my favorite play of the week in this game, though, is Cooper Kupp. Cooper Kupp at plus odds here to score a touchdown with no Puka. We know he's going to get a ton of opportunities for catches, for receptions, for yards. I posted a receptions and yardage prop parlay in the VIP channel. So if you guys are a VIP member, you guys are already sitting pretty on that play. You got it before it inevitably bumped. And I would not be surprised if his lines have bumped already. I'm curious to see. His passing yardage is set at 45.5 on FanDuel. And what are his receptions at? Yep, don't worry about my spending here. Total receptions, Cooper Kupp, 7.5, heavily juiced to the over at a minus 140. I think that his touchdown play is my favorite out of this game, but there's another little angle that if you guys want it, click the links below and you'll get access to it. One more play before I forget from this game. I got to go back to the well on James Conner. I think this is a nice little two-man parlay with James Conner to score a touchdown and Cooper Kupp to score a touchdown at a plus 275. I'm thinking that they pound James Conner around the goal line. Obviously, if you watched the game last week where the Rams lost in overtime to Detroit, you know they're susceptible against the run to give up a touchdown early and late. James Conner's a guy that can easily get one touchdown in this game. I like this little two-man parlay at a plus 275. The next game on the slate is the Bengals visiting the world champs The next game on the slate is the Bengals visiting the two-time defending world champ Kansas City Chiefs. Kansas City is a 5.5-point spread. The next game on the slate is the Bengals visiting the two-time defending Kansas City Chiefs. Kansas City is a 5.5-point favorite, and the total on this game is 47.5. I think that Kansas City runs away with this game personally. I didn't see anything from the Bengals week one that would lead me to believe otherwise. I am interested in an Isaiah Pacheco touchdown, just like I was week one. And I also probably could be convinced of a Rashee Rice or Travis Kelce touchdown. I think both are an interesting option. And the fact that you can parlay the two of them together at a plus 473 is an interesting angle as well. A little bit more risky than just taking one of the two of them. But I think that's an interesting thing to look at that I'm going to have to dive a little bit deeper into. I also have some interest in a rushing prop for Zach Moss. 12.5 is what his line is set at right now with a slight lean to the under. Underdog has it at an even 12. FanDuel has it at 12.5. DraftKings 12.5 as well. Best odds right now I'm seeing to the under, which is what I'm interested in, is a minus 114 on FanDuel right now. Last week against New England, Zach Moss only had 9 carries. I don't see them being up in this game very long, if at all. And I think that this game could easily game script out Zach Moss. I think this game heads in a direction where Zach Moss is game scripted out. The only way I think Zach Moss exceeds this 12.5 rushing attempts line is if they either somehow get the lead or they just continue to try to establish the run, to maintain a balanced offense and keep Kansas City's rushing attack or passing attack at bay. I don't know if that happens. That's the only way I see this bet failing, but I like Zach Moss's under 12.5 rushing attempts in this game. Guys, do me a favor. If you've enjoyed this content, if you've enjoyed this video, if you like my other videos, please drop me a comment. It helps boost that algorithm. You don't even have to say anything super meaningful, or you could say something very meaningful and deep and sincere, and I would appreciate that too. and follow me on YouTube. That helps me grow. I appreciate you guys. Hopefully you find value in these videos. The next game on the slate is the Pittsburgh Steelers heading to Denver to face the Broncos. The Steelers are 2.5-point favorites. Justin Fields is at quarterback, I believe, in week 2 as well. After he kind of earned the start in week 1, he threw an absolute dime to George Pickens along the sideline, and he was pretty much Justin Fields. Some good, some bad, more good than bad, and they won week 1. Denver looked pretty bad. I think the only thing I'm interested in this game is the Steelers, potentially minus 2.5. I like that we're not getting it at -3, so we've got that little cushion if they win by a field goal. Low point total, probably a lot of field goals in this game. Not really too much I'm interested in. I think there's better spots on the slate. The last game on the Sunday slate for week 2 is the Bears against Houston Texans. I'm not going to get too much into this game because I will be doing a primetime parlay show. If you guys have watched my YouTube videos, you know I do primetime parlays. Check them out. Follow me on YouTube. Turn your notifications on so you don't miss out on any of those shows. They have been extremely valuable thus far this season, so I won't go too far into this. However, I do like the Houston money line, and I'm interested in a Joe Mixon touchdown as well. That is all the games on the Sunday slate, excluding the Sunday night primetime game. Do me a favor, follow, like, comment on this video, and tune in about 7:45 Eastern Standard Time, Sunday night and Monday night for primetime parlays where we build out longer odds or SGP plays that, of course, they all hit. And remember to bet smart and win more.